Thank you so much for participating in the Nevada Department of Education's Test Security and Administration Training for the fall of the 2015-16 school year. This presentation is required for district and school personnel who will be involved in any capacity with the administration of the high school proficiency examination or the English language proficiency examination. New training presentations addressing computer-based testing will be available in early 2016. Test security is required by NRS 389. Strict adherence to these procedures will minimize errors, provide consistency and equity in test administration, protect the integrity of the assessment program, and ensure the validity of student scores. The foundation of the security processes begins with the test security plans. School test security plans include specifics on the locations of secure storage, names of the responsible individuals, a plan to track possession of keys and access to those materials, and description of makeup procedures and a way to verify absences so that we can assure that students aren't testing twice. School test security plans also provide procedures for providing additional time to students that need them and processes for transitioning students to another testing environment. Your school test security plan should deal with the what-ifs and emergencies that could happen during testing. Your security plans are subject to be audited or on-site observations by the district office or the Nevada Department of Education. Plans should be filed with the district office and retained for 3 school years. School test security plans must be consistent with procedures outlined in district and state plans. Principals must provide refresher annual training. Refresher training prior to testing windows is highly recommended with assessment-specific training. Your resources to train include this PowerPoint. There are state and district test security procedure documents. There are also many documents posted as resources to the NDE website at www.doe.nv.gov/assessments. You'll also find test administration, test coordinator manuals, and all those other ancillary materials at that site. All personnel involved with the testing process must be trained. You should document the attendees and keep those records that they have been trained for 3 years. The test administrator is responsible for all testing activities at the classroom level. Test administrators must be licensed. Licensed subs may serve as test administrators. You see the thinking here. You have to have a teaching license. You have to be licensed in Nevada in order to be a test administrator. Proctors or persons assisting with the test administrator may be unlicensed but must not be left unattended with the test materials. This is how you get your student teachers that are unlicensed, your aides, your community volunteers, and your emergency subs. This is how you can involve them, but they should always be supervised by a licensed Nevada professional. Emergency substitute teachers, sometimes common in the rural districts, are not considered licensed teachers and must not be given primary responsibility for test administration. Of course, we wouldn't give you a role without an exception. Paraprofessionals who have certified on the WIDA website may administer certain portions of our English language proficiency assessment, provided it is not a violation of district procedures. Let's talk now about the storage and distribution of test materials. We're looking for secure storage with limited access. You should maintain a sign-in and sign-out log for the keys. You should retain this information for 3 years, probably right alongside your test security training records. Any documents with student identifying information should be kept secure. So are obviously the tests themselves. However, manuals are not secure. So every test is going to have a complement of secure and non-secure materials. High school proficiency exam materials are secure and are not distributed until the day of the test. English language proficiency assessment materials may be stored over multiple days in testing rooms as long as that's in compliance with the district testing plan. You should prepare for administration by distributing testing rosters based on student eligibility. Only 12th graders and adults are eligible to participate in the high school proficiency exam this year. You should use the WIDA screening tests to determine that who is eligible for your English language proficiency assessment. It's tricky at the school level. You'll want to distribute accommodation and designated support information and get that down to the classroom test administrator level. You should refer to your school test security plan for distribution and collection procedures. This includes test coordinators, test administrators, students should be signing off when materials are changing hands, sign-in sheets at the classroom level. You should check the classroom environments for non-permissible materials. Anything that could guide a student through a process is unacceptable. Please inform your students in advance that no electronic devices are allowed unless a specific accommodation allows for that device. Simply possessing unauthorized, non-permissible devices is grounds for invalidation. We're not going to get into a conversation about whether you were just texting for a ride after school. Pull out that cell phone and it's invalid. Student cheating or misconduct will result in invalid scores. Test administration, students should be identified and checked in with the sign-in sheets we talked about a few pages ago. Note the start and end time of a testing session. No unauthorized individuals should be present in the testing room. You should document any individuals that visit. You should contact a test coordinator if a student not on the roster reports for testing. Test materials must be on the student desktop prior to the start of testing. All other materials should be stored and inaccessible during the assessment. During administration, you should circulate to ensure quiet, test conductive environment. Scripts are to be read verbatim. Test administrators and proctors are circulating and monitoring activity throughout the assessment. No assistance should be provided to students. Do your best is the cliche line. Students should be supervised by licensed personnel while in possession of secure test materials. Licensed people watching the secure materials all the time. Photographing, recording, or transmitting any part of a test or testing session is prohibited. I imagine in the future this will say tweeting, vining, Facebooking. As soon as we think we can do a comprehensive list, we'll change this wording. But I'm sure you understand the thought here. No recording or photographing any part of a test session. More details on administration. No calculators for the high school proficiency exam unless a student has an IEP that allows that calculator. Passages and items for the high school proficiency exam reading test are never read aloud. Passages and items are not read aloud. The only dictionaries permitted for the high school proficiency exam are an American Sign Language word to signed symbol glossary for math and science, as well as bilingual word-to-word glossaries or content-specific glossaries for math and science. Notice that there are no dictionaries permitted for writing or reading. For students with an IEP or a 504 that allows for typed response to the high school proficiency exam in writing, you should assure that the auto editing features are disabled. Disclosure of test content is strictly prohibited by state law. Do not read, review, look at, copy, or take any notes on the content of this test. Of course, here comes another exception. There are going to be times when you have a read aloud accommodation. So naturally that person would be allowed to then read that licensed educator would be allowed then to access that material I just told you they shouldn't look at. They'll sign a confidentiality agreement and you'll keep that with your other records of training for 3 years. It's tricky because symbols, numerals are no symbols or numerals are to be read aloud. Read verbatim, no paraphrasing, elaborating, explaining, or translating. So it is sort of tricky to do the read aloud. This is awkward, but it's in line with our test security procedures that administrators have no real need to look at the assessment. If a student has concerns about a test question, the test administrator should contact the school test coordinator with the question number. The school test coordinator contacts the district office, who contacted us here at the Department of Ed. We'll pull a copy of the test. We'll check to make sure if we do find a typo. I've seen one in 10 years of doing this. We'll change that item. Everybody will get credit for it. So it is possible that there's a typo in the printed document, but it's unlikely. And if it happens, we'll fix it. But the important part of this process is that you should be able to do this without looking at the assessment itself. The high school proficiency exam is not a timed test. Additional time must be given if students are working productively. An appropriate testing environment is maintained at all times. The testing session is still in progress if any students are still assessing, and all security procedures apply the entire time students are with the test. Unsupervised breaks or unsupervised peer interaction is prohibited prior to completing a section of the HSPE. So breaks are allowed, but they need to be supervised. Students may not return to a previously administered part on another day. So if you start part 1 of math, you should finish part 1 of math. Take your break and start part 2 the next day. Do not start part 2, end for the day, and come back to part 2. Those are invalid. Specific online WIDA training materials exist for the English language proficiency exam. So please check those for time on ELPA. Students who finish early may read if they remain in the testing room. We expect that you be given paper materials only. They should have no test materials left on their desk. No electronic devices of any kind. We also ask that they not be allowed to write or draw. They're in school anyways, just let them read an old-fashioned book for those 20 minutes. After testing, follow your school plan and collect all the materials prior to dismissing students. You want to make sure you've got everything before you let them out of the room. You'll collect those materials from your test administrators, and you'll check the counts and initial the transfer of materials anytime, even within your own building. You should account for those materials by the end of the day, but of course, at that point, it may be too late. I'm sure you'll attend to them at a moment-by-moment basis. Follow your district plan for the English language proficiency assessment. After testing, provide makeup testing when permissible and necessary. There is no makeup testing for the high school proficiency examination in writing. No makeups for writing. Reconcile the answer document count against the number of students who were scheduled to test. So again, you're using your rosters even at the end of testing. Package and return materials immediately according to vendor instructions. You'll have those instructions in every material shipment to your school. I'm going to turn this over to, let me keep going. There are varying degrees of severity in terms of testing irregularities. At an interruption of testing, there could be administration errors or, hopefully not, security breaches. Immediate notification of a potential irregularity is required by state law. An administrator should notify the principal or the school test coordinator, who notifies the district office, who notifies the Department of Ed. Department expects a written report within 14 days, and the template is at the same place as all these other assessment resources online. We expect that report of irregularity to include a detailed narrative, whether invalidation is required. We're looking to obtain as much information as possible, including separately attached statements from the relevant adults. The department is obligated by law to conduct investigations as it deems necessary, and it may enlist the assistance of district testing personnel. Investigations are conducted at the school, district, and state level. The districts must submit all findings to the department. So just like you'd expect, every level involved in investigation of irregularities. Possible consequences of a testing irregularity include corrective action administered by the department or by the district. We would probably include a review of the procedures as well as potential on-site observations in the future. If appropriate, we would invalidate scores. There are potential accountability consequences, and license sanctions are available to the Department of Ed. If you lose an answer document, we're not coming after your license. But if you photocopy the test, we probably are. Remember, the principal is ultimately responsible for all testing activities at the site. If you have any questions, I'm Henry King, and I'm available at 775-687-9194. Across the table from me here is Carol Mason at 775-687-9260. We're here to help. Thank you so much. Appreciate your attendance at the Nevada Test Security Training.